Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for setting your alarms, especially all of you with jet lag. I feel you. Today, I'm going to talk about how to mature your application security program. And I made this talk because I've had many jobs, but one job I've done since 2018 is working with different AppSec teams, mostly across North America through a company called IANS Research. So I don't know if you've ever seen those TV game shows where you can phone a friend and ask the answer to the trivia question. So what they do is you can phone a nerd, and I'm one of the nerds. And then we help you with your, in my case, your AppSec program, but some people it's, ransomware or whatever. And so after working with almost 400 different AppSec teams, and then running my own AppSec team a few times, I came across different models that don't work very well, that are really common. And so the consulting advice that I give is often very similar. So I went through a bunch of my notes, and I was like, I always see these three things, and this is what I always do that works. What if I just made a talk and I just shared all of that? And so that's what this talk is about. So what are we going to talk about today? Common security models for software. So software security programs. We're going to talk about bad ones and basically why they fail. And then we're going to talk about how we can all do better. And I'm aware that all of you don't have the same budget. So I have a bunch of things for if you have no budget or a smaller budget, and then ones for if you have a bigger budget. Because how many of you are the only person on the AppSec team? Oh, not? Okay, some hands. So I've been the whole AppSec team a whole bunch of times. And so my budget was like really little. And so I feel for all of you. If you have a really big budget, I'm happy for you, but we're not all there yet. Okay, so how I conducted my research. So meeting with different teams for about an hour a week, depending upon the team. So some teams, like one team, I met them 2 hours a week for like years. Other teams, I would check in every quarter. It kind of depends on the company and how much support that they wanted. Sometimes they, like 3 months would go by and they're like, we're not ready yet. Honestly, we haven't accomplished anything that we talked about. We had an incident, everything went out the window. We'll call you in 3 more months. I'm like, that's cool. And then essentially me taking tons and tons of notes and then refining things over the years. So who am I? So I'm Tanya Janca. I'm from Canada. At some point I will say aboot, and I'll be like, no, I didn't. I will deny it vehemently. I'm a staff developer relations at SumGrep. I'm known as SheX Purple. I really like purple. I wrote some books, and my next book comes out in 2 weeks, and I'm very excited. And I don't have any here, I'm sorry. They're still printing them. I've worked in tech a long time. I've started some things, I give some advice, and I do some research. And hopefully you're like, she seems tolerable. I'm totally willing to stay. So let's talk maturity. So when I work with clients, I'm like, so are you doing a maturity model right now? And most of them are like, what's that? And then some of them are like, we looked at, let's look at some models. So we looked at OWASP SAM, and someone's gonna do, I believe Sebastien is here, he's gonna do a really amazing presentation about OWASP SAM. BSIM, NIST, there's also DSOM now from OWASP. These are models that you can measure yourself against and your program against and see how you're doing. But I remember at OWASP Global AppSec in 2023, I attended one of Sebastien's talks, which was really good. And he had surveyed all of his users who regularly meet up and use SAM, and the average rating was 1.1 out of 3. And I was like, these are people who are very serious about AppSec, who are working their buns off and have been for years, and they're a 1 out of 3. If I show my clients, who are usually like, my hair is on fire, I'm not sure what AppSec stands for, like when I meet them, when I come into an engagement, they're usually just like, everything's on fire, we don't know what we're doing. If I present something as thorough and comprehensive as SAM, they look at me and their eyes water, and they're just like, I can't even look at that, it's so big. And then BSIM, you have to pay to do BSIM, which is okay. You know, we do work, we want money for work, I get it. And BSIM is also quite extensive and quite huge as well. And so as a result, when I show something like this to a client, they're completely overwhelmed. And they're just like, I don't even know where to start. Like, even just looking at all the different categories is overwhelming me, much less trying to pick some and then do them. And so if you're there, that's awesome. But like, if you want to do a good job of these, you need 7 figures. Most of the companies I work with, their budget is 6 figures, and some of them it's 5 figures, and some of them it's literally 0. They're like, we hired you, that's our entire budget to talk to you once every quarter for an hour. I'm like, great, let's go. And so these models are good, just to be clear, they're amazing, but we're not all there yet. And as an industry, so I work with a lot of companies that aren't software companies. And I don't know if you know, but a lot of them prioritize the security of their software much lower. Like, if you work at Facebook or Microsoft or Netflix, that's amazing, and you probably have enough money to do something like this in your budget, but most of us aren't there. So this is a talk for the rest of us. Okay, so on to the models. This is my favorite OSI model. You have to have a certain number of cats, right? I thought that was a rule. Oh, also, I used the AI, OpenAI, to make these images, and there is something very wrong with almost all of them. And it is okay to laugh very loudly when you're like, why does that person have so many arms? Why is that? Yeah, there's some very special images in here, so just so you know, it's okay to laugh. Okay, so first model is called Just Pen Test the Important Stuff. So I'm sure that some of you started here. When I worked in the Canadian government, we did this at a bunch of places. So we would have like 80 apps, and then there would be 2 that were like in the news that the public talked about that were mission critical to us, and we'd have a penetration test once a year on those. And then we would fix the highs, and then pretend the rest didn't happen, and then do nothing for a year until the pen tester had to come back, and the rest of them got nothing. And a lot of companies have worked with this. They start here, and that is okay. Like, we all start somewhere, right? But why? Like, oh, okay, so this model is extremely common. It's usually coupled with no formal system development lifecycle. So everyone is kind of doing their own thing. So they have a mixed tech stack. And by that I mean, that guy's doing Java, that lady's doing Ruby, that person over there is like, I live and breathe Node.js. Everyone's doing something different. Someone's like, I have a Kubernetes cluster, I'm doing Agile, I've got Waterfall. Yeah, that's really hard to secure. There's code everywhere. So I'm like, oh, where do you keep your code? They're like, in a code repository. I'm like, is it all in the same repository? No, this one's Azure DevOps, that one's GitHub, that one's over here. Someone is a rebel and they're using SourceSafe and they're 1,000 years old. And everyone's just doing their own thing. And why is this model bad, you might be thinking? Well, I mean, I hope that, like, looking at this slide, you're like, I know why it's bad, right? But the main reason that I feel this model's bad is because you're spending a bunch of money to hire an expert to come in once a year, and there's no knowledge transfer. No knowledge, so like none of your team's getting better. So they're coming in right at the end of the system development lifecycle. You're paying them a small fortune. You probably don't have quite enough time to fix everything. And like the next time, your team makes the same mistakes because no one taught them to do better. There's no tools so that they can find those problems earlier. Like, there's no support for your team at all. A pen tester comes in, and I remember, because I was a pen tester for about 1.5 years before I switched to application security. And I remember, like, I'd come in and I'd be like, pew, 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 and I would look super smart because no one had ever looked before me. And it's not that I was amazing, it's that it was like fish in a barrel, as the expression goes. I hope that makes sense in Europe. Okay, so how do we mature this model? So I'm gonna start with, I'm gonna start with the no budget plan. Okay, so all of these things, there's a way to do them for free, and then we're gonna have a it costs money plan. And so the first one is secure coding training, and at the end, so for everyone that was early, they got stickers. There's piles of stickers over there where that gentleman is taking a photo. For a second, I thought he was like drinking coffee, and I'm like, that's really like casual to just be almost on the stage. I'm like, that's cool, what's up? But I have a free academy with a free course, so you can do that for free with your team. So the no budget plan. So first of all, use cool free tools. There's so many cool free tools so if anyone in here is an open source maintainer or developer, thank you. There's so many cool free tools. So there's Burp, and Zap. So Burp's almost free. To me, I consider $500 a year pretty much free. There's SumGrep Community, there's Brakeman, there's Bandit, there's FindBugs. There's so many cool free tools. There's NPM Audit. Like, there's so many cool free tools. And so you, as the security nerd, can go and look those tools. You could give permission to your devs to use some of those tools. I am a big fan. That's where I started. You can create a secure coding guideline. So if you tell the devs what you want, you're significantly more likely to actually get it. And that is a winning strategy, in my opinion. Create a list of security requirements. So this is a document when you kick off a project, so you're like, oh, you're building an API, that's fantastic. I am glad, APIs are awesome. These are the security requirements that I'm gonna have for you if you are building an open API, right? So I find a lot of teams when I work with here, they're giving zero instructions. They're giving zero guidance. And so as a result, they're getting wildly different products that they get to test. And so if you give some guidance at the very beginning, you will get something way better at the end, especially if you answer questions. So this is a hard one. If you can consolidate your code to the same place, so if everyone is using different repositories, like different instances, but the same type of repository, that's not as bad. But if you can get it all in the same place, life is really good, because you can just point a bunch of tools at it and get it to automatically scan every week. Every time someone checks something in, you can even scan it like just as it's checking it in, so you can block the check-in. If you're like, that's terrifying, don't put that there. But if your code's everywhere, then you have to set up a million tools. And that's a lot more work for you. So if you can convince them to consolidate it, which again is hard, but free. So this is another hard but free one. So if everyone could do the same, or at least very close, system development lifecycle. So I know some of us are doing waterfall, some of us are doing agile, some of us are doing DevOps, some of us are saying we do agile because we have a 3-hour Scrum meeting once a week. I used to work somewhere and they would have an 1.5-hour Scrum meeting every morning. I'm like, that's not a Scrum meeting, that's just a meeting. So whatever you're doing, if everyone could do as close to the same thing as possible, this will make your lives 100 times better, because then it's easy for you to weave yourself throughout. But if team A is over there doing something completely different than team B, and you have 26 teams, that's really hard. Okay, so still no budget. If you can threat model, like a simple threat model, not like a huge threat model, but a simple one for your important apps. So remember the apps that you pen tested before? If you could also do a threat model on them, a simple threat model, this can really help you improve. And so if you're like, what's threat modeling? I don't know where to start. There's this. So first of all, there's some cool talks about threat modeling at this conference, which I plan to be in the front row for. But there's also, I have this friend named Adam Shostak, and he has this thing called the 4-question frame for threat modeling. And it's just 4 questions. And I totally use it all the time. And it's just, what are we doing? What could go wrong? What are we going to do about it? And you talk through those questions. And then at the end, the 4th question, did we do a good job? Which is a little bit like your mom being like, really? You didn't put your dishes in the dishwasher? Really? And it's for if you've accepted every risk, just like, I'm gonna make you feel guilty and we're gonna go through those questions again, which is sort of genius. But you don't have to have like a consultant for a lot of money. You don't have to spend weeks doing it. It could be a 1-hour conversation and you can still get value. Okay, this is a hard one. Sharing information on past security incidents that have to do with software. So if you've had a big attack on one of your pieces of software, if you could talk about it with the software developers and say, this is what happened. This is what went wrong. This is how it went wrong. This is how we didn't catch it. And this is why we need to work with you, on these process changes or whatever it is that you're gonna do to make sure that this doesn't ever happen again. I find that that brings software developers right to the front of their seats. That's how I got so hooked on security is I asked if I could just tag along, and then there was all this code on the screen, and it was an injection, and I was like, and they all look at me, they're like, you can read that? I'm like, yeah, it's just SQL. Yeah. And then I was on the team, and it changed everything. Like seeing how one security incident could cost more than like 3 engineers' salary, I was like, oh, this is way more important than fixing that bug I was gonna do this afternoon. Scan your code base for secrets. So if there are secrets in your code, and if you haven't scanned before, there probably are, removing them and accessing them programmatically instead would be good. So there are paid and free tools that do that. And the difference is basically like a paid tool costs money, but it's usually more accurate. A free tool is free, but then you pay with your time. And so you could totally do this for free. I've done it like with free tools quite often at various organizations. And then, okay, so let's say you have a really bad app. So you scan it, and your scanner is just like a sea of like red and yellow. There's like no green. It looks like Christmas with all the red lights. And you're just like, oh gosh, this is really bad. You could put a web app firewall, a WAF, in front of it. And there's a free WAF from OWASP called Mod Security. And do I think a WAF is a replacement for secure coding? No, 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 no. Imagine you fall and you skin your knee, and you have a wound. You put a bandage on a wound until it's better. That's how I view WAFs, is that it's a temporary thing until you can make it acceptable and good enough to stand on its own. I don't view it as like a permanent solution to fixing problems. And so then at the end of this no budget plan, you still pen test the important stuff. But now the result and the report you get is not 200 pages, and it's not humiliating, and you don't have 30 critical bugs in your brand new app. It's actually a respectable report. And because there's so many less bugs, there's fewer bugs, you have more time to fix those things. So you send something out the door that is way better than you did last year. And also, more importantly, your team has learned so much. Your team, like, you have found faster ways to do things, you've automated things, things are going a lot better at this point. So this is the no budget plan. And so now we're gonna move on to see her, she has budget. She's like, yeah, that's right. So this is the I have some budget plan. And so if I have budget, the first thing I do is hire a person to do AppSec full time. Lots of organizations that I work with, they're like, oh, I'm the AppSec team, but I'm also GRC and also the SOC. Hi, all my hair is gray and I'm 20. I have this picture of a very elderly man, and it's like, being a developer is not stressful at all. John, age 26. And so if you can hire a person where their whole job is only ensuring the software is secure, and they know how to speak to developers, and they know about code, and they love this stuff, this is your best, in my opinion, investment, because they can do the whole part of the free plan for you, right? Like, they can do a lot with nothing. That's how they got their job. And then the next one is, if you're gonna buy a tool, so Bias Alert, I work at a company that makes tools. We make one of these, we make a bunch of things. Whichever one you buy, the paid static analysis tools I find are the best bet compared to a secret scanner, an SCA, a DAST, a WAF. Like, for me, it's the biggest step up personally, because the free ones are just like false positives all day long. And like, if you hand a developer a report and you're like, hey, fix these bugs, and there's 100 things, first of all, that's discouraging. But second of all, when 90% of them are like nothing, then they look at you, they're like, Tanya's stupid. And that is not helpful, right? And so maybe you'll do that. And then number 3, I wouldn't pay for a test. I would just use the free ones forever. And then 4, you still do all of step 2. So you still do all the free stuff. Like, you don't necessarily need to spend a whole bunch of money to do a good AppSec program. So this would be like a basic AppSec program, but that's super respectable. Like, you would be doing a pretty good job at this point, especially for your 2 or 3 really high priority apps. Okay. Oh, we have tons of time. Go, Tanya. Sometimes I talk like a lot. And then, because I was seeing like, never mind. Anyway. Okay, so model tool. Model 2, I call this tools, tools, and even more tools. So this is where you have, oh my gosh, I worked with one company and they had 11 tools in their CI. It took like, I don't know, 11 hours to run or something. They had 2 SASTs, they had 2 DASTs, they had IaaS, they had everything. They're just piles of things. So I'll work with companies where they're spending a lot of money on tools. And so this is the most common one I've seen, where they just focus on tools. And the tools are often partially rolled out. So they're paying, I came into one company and they were paying $160,000 a year. I'm like, you're not paying me that much. And I looked, and 9% of the developers had opened it that year. And I was like, why a 9-year race? Like, if you're willing to waste money on this thing that no one uses, what am I doing? I work with a lot of companies where they're like, oh, we bought this, we bought that. You know, we have 200 developers, so we bought 200 licenses, and then 20 developers use it once in a blue moon. So I don't like that. I want all my money's worth. There's lots and lots and lots of reports. So everyone's emailing bug reports to everyone. But basically, nothing's getting fixed. Yeah. The program's totally inconsistent. So imagine, I'm going to stand on this side for a bit. Imagine one team, you know, they get a kickoff meeting with the security person. They have a threat model. They have all the tools run on their thing. They're getting tons and tons of attention. The other teams are being totally ignored. Right? And it's not that theirs is more high priority. Maybe for whatever reason, the AppSec person likes them better or they talk to them more. But you are not releasing code that each time is the same level of security. You have good, medium, and bad happening all day long. And as a result, you don't know what you can count on, right? Like, everything is completely different, and that's a problem. And they always have a static analysis tool, and they always have a dynamic analysis tool, as though they'll, I don't know why, but they just always have those 2. They usually have 0 documentation, or if they do have documentation. So I worked at this one place, and the guy on the security team's like, okay, I finally have our survey for the devs. It was 80 pages template. He's like, it'll be like 160 to 200 pages when it's done. I'm like, that's more than there is of code. No one's filling out your thing, George, go home. 0 people ever filled out George's thing. And then me and my bud Eric made one that was 6 pages, and we interviewed you. So we would just meet with them, and we'd chat with them, and we'd answer it as we chatted, and then at the end, we'd be like, so this is what we filled out. Do you agree? Did we miss anything? Is this accurate? They'd say yes, and then we would either have recommendations or stamp approval, right? And people did the 6-page thing. But the main question is, why won't the developers fix anything? And I'll start the call and they'll explain lots of stuff, and I'm like, but what do you really need help with? And they'll say, why won't the developers fix things? And I will say, did you ask any of the developers this question? And they're like, well, no. When was the last time you spoke to a developer? Oh, I sent them a report yesterday. I'm like, no, but did you speak to them? I know you send them spam with PDFs attached of many bugs you would like them to fix, but did you speak to them? Oh, a few months ago, we did this. Okay, I see the problem. Let's go. Okay, so why is this bad? This model's bad because you're paying quite a bit, and you're getting security. And your security posture looks like this, because it's all over the place. you're not getting your money's worth for the tools, like the contracts you've signed. Your staff's probably like not superbly happy. The devs are probably like not in love with you. Like they probably don't have a hate club or anything, but they're like, there's the AppSec person, she's gonna lecture me. So it's like everything's kind of okay. So there's some friction. It's not the end of the world, but it's just, you're not getting what you want, and you're paying like a fair sum for okay security. Buttons, there we go. So how do we mature Model 2? So I have a bunch of things that include silly AI pictures, obviously. So the first one, do all the stuff from the previous model. So this image is the funniest image because I asked it to take an image of a little girl that's 10 and then draw her growing up over time until she's an elderly woman, and it gave me this. And I was like, I'll take it. my cyberpunk little girl for our presentation. Also, she's so not 10. But anyway, it's fine. It's fine. So we want to do all the stuff we did before. So let's do everything that is free that we can do. Let's do things to build some bridges. So we're going to try to centralize some stuff. We're trying to get some things together, right? But more. So if you have a budget at this point, we're gonna talk about a few things to save money, but if you can hire another AppSec person, and it's really important when you go from one AppSec person to 2 or more, so I've had some people give me some crap about this, so this is my opinion, but in AppSec, although there's many types of people, we're all unique snowflakes, there's really 2 AppSec types of people. And one is the badass pen tester, that will just do very, very thorough testing that is in-depth. They're very patient, they're very determined. I'm really glad they're on our side. They're very, very smart, and they will test things all day long and do a great job. And then there's the person that does every other part of AppSec, the cuddly AppSec person that will pair program, that will threat model, that will write a standard or a policy. They'll automate tons of things in your CI. So they're still technical, they do many technical tasks, but they're like, I'm kind of okay at testing. That's the type of AppSec person I am. You need one from each category. You cannot have an AppSec team that's all pen testers, because then you actually have a pen testing team, which is still cool, but you're not getting the whole thing. And if you don't have any pen testers at all, then that means you have to hire out all the time, and that's expensive. And then also, like when you have an in-house pen tester, they have all this amazing corporate memory. So they know all these things about your organization, your business model, and so then they can be really quite scary. So you want to have one of each when you go from one AppSec person to 2. So that's important, in my opinion. 2 or 3, number 3, not number 2. I like to reassess all my tools. So you have power. So if you can sign checks, or you can convince your CISO to sign checks, you can have power over vendors. And many times, I've looked at my tools and I'm like, oh, none of the devs are using this one, why? And I'll ask them, and if they're like, I hate it, it makes me want to get a new job, then I'm like, okay, maybe I need to get a different tool. Or they're like, oh, I didn't know we had that. Okay, maybe I need to do some education and teach people how to use it. Or like, oh, it doesn't work with the tools we have. I need a different tool, or maybe there's a way to do it and we didn't know yet. So look at all the tools that you have. I try to do this every 2 years. So often vendors would really love for you to sign for 3 years or until you die. We don't want to do that, right? So if you sign for maybe 2 years, then as you get close to your 2-year mark, is this working for us? Is this like meeting up to the promises that they said? Do our devs want to use this? Because if not, there's lots of different tools on the market, and you might find a better one. Also, when you're renegotiating, sometimes you can get a lower price, or you can like jump from one vendor to another vendor and they'll give you a few months free. So like use this chance to try to save some money, and to, more importantly, find a tool that everyone's actually willing to use. So sometimes I reassess, I'm like, nah, it's still awesome. That's the one I want, right? But quite often, like if I have 4 or 5 tools, I'm like, this one's gotta go. And so try looking at that and you might save money. Another one, ensure your rollout is complete. So if you have paid for 129 licenses, you should use at least 120 licenses, right? You should be using almost all of them. Like maybe you have a couple devs that are just like, you know, I'm doing some weird thing that doesn't apply, or I'm doing low code, no code, it doesn't apply. That's fine. But if you have 100 Java developers and you bought a SAST for Java developers and only 2 of them turn it on, like that's not the right tool for you, right? Or it's not rolled out in a way where they can use it well. And so figure out what's happening, talk to people, ask them. Like don't just judge, literally speak to them, which I know not all of us like, and then find out and then decide like if we wanna roll it out the rest of the way. This is the hardest one. Provide advice and support. I bet all of you are very busy. I bet if all of you like looked at your list of things to do, I bet there's at least 10, if not 20 or 30 things, and you're like, I definitely have time for 2. I bet all of you have so much on the go because you work in security, and that's why we have a lot of burnout in our industry. So this one's hard. I know this is hard, but if you can be a trusted resource where people feel comfortable coming to you and saying like, hey, Tanya, so I found a thing, and they know you're not gonna yell at them, and they know you're gonna be like, I'm gonna put whatever I'm doing down and I'm gonna come help. This is a huge thing that will change everything about the way people interact with you and your team. And it's hard, but once you start, so like if you're introverted, I get it, you don't have to do public speaking. I realize that is a fate worse than death for some of us, but you can talk one-on-one, right? And they need your advice. Okay, so number 6, start to manage incidents properly. So when I went to work at Microsoft, oh wow, they're so smooth, they're so good. I would report an incident, they'd be like, thank you, Tanya, we're actually already on it. Anything else? Wow, okay, cool, amazing. So we want to create a way to report incidents easily. So at Microsoft, you just type, if you're on the VPN, you just type report it now. And then it just brings you to this thing and it walks you through, holds your hand, and it reports it for you. It's so effortless. We want to teach software developers what a security incident looks like. And I have a free training course on that in my academy. So again, free. There's nothing in the academy that costs money, just to be clear. But we do put you on our newsletter. So hopefully you're like, that's not the end of the world. You can unsubscribe if you need to. But basically, like by telling them this is what an incident looks like, this is what need to know means, and it means don't tell everyone you know. There's lots of things that I was not aware of when I joined a security incident for the first time. And then you want to have a process that everyone knows. So everyone knows what their part is. I've worked at a lot of places where only the security team knows what an incident looks like, what they're supposed to do, what their responsibility is. And then when an incident happens, no one else follows it because they don't even know it exists. And that is not good. And so we want to make sure if someone has a responsibility, they're aware of it, they know what to do. Okay, so number 3, I call this the Stranglehold giant spend. And I have worked at this place a few times where if you want to, so I worked at one place and we had to do a 21-step approval process every single time I ran one scan. That sucked. If we had a forum called the emergency scan forum, and it's still 21 steps, but you could complete it with the 2 of us working very hard in about 3 weeks to run one scan. Yeah, that sucked. I had to have my boss's boss approve the scan. I'm like, do you think she knows what DAS stands for? No, she doesn't. Do you think that she has more important stuff to do than deal with me? Yes, she does. She does not care. I don't even know if, yeah, it was ridiculous. And so this place is made out of friction. Everyone's miserable. And so look at that dog. Whoa, he's got some problems. He's very upset. So they're spending so much money. They have like every single tool you've ever heard of. If it ends in AST, they own it. They have governance where you need a form if you want to breathe. it is so locked down that no one can do anything. There's almost no innovation, and there's constant friction. I have little ones at home, and my little boy is not very good with animals. He likes them, they don't like him. And so like I'll see him petting a cat backwards so enthusiastically. He's like, kitty, and the cat's like, ah. That's happening all day long at this place. That's what's happening. The security posture is not satisfying. So you are paying a fortune. Like maybe you have a 7-figure budget, right? Like you're like spending $1 million or more, and you are just not getting what you want at all. And security and developers never speak, or if they do, it's not polite and professional. I went to work at another place like this, and I remember the first week, one of the security folks was saying, look at this, the developer CC'd my boss and his boss and the client, and he told me to F off. I can't believe it. That's like, they're so out of line, they're so unprofessional. And then I read the whole thread, and I was like, that's our fault. Yep. I would definitely have said the F word much earlier. He was very restrained. You were being awful. We are awful. Okay, I see, we're the problem. Yeah, so no one's happy. No one is happy with this model. And so you're like, why is this model bad? I feel like I just told you, but I wanted a really big dragon in my slides, so I think dragons are pretty cool. This model's very bad because people will quit. People will literally quit. One of the places, I tried and tried and tried for 9 months. I couldn't get anywhere, and I resigned. In protests, because I'm like, I literally cannot do my job. I cannot secure this organization. The governance people are after me. I can't do a scan. I can't do a test. I can't go talk to devs without having to get a permission slip, which makes no sense. And so this model's bad because everyone's unhappy, and you're not much more secure than the other models. So how do we mature this? We mature this with a bunch of things, but you need to scale your program. So you're not covering everything in a good way, and we want to scale, and we can scale in several ways, but the 2 ways I like the best are, if you can, hire another AppSec person, and you need a cuddly person that has some social skills. So the social skills are really important on this one. If they have experience with mediation or negotiations, that would be even better. If they have good persuasion skills, that would be really great. There's someone that everyone feels comfortable speaking to. Plus, they're very nerdy and technical, which I know is hard to find. Or, if you're not going to do that, you could start a security champions program. And I'm giving a talk tomorrow about security champions. I'm a little obsessed with that, but that is another way that you could try to scale your program. And I'm checking my time, and it is not too bad. Yes. If you're not going to do a champions program, you could do an advocacy program. So a security champions program is where the AppSec team, usually it's software developers in AppSec, but it can be your whole org. But just for now, let's just focus on developers. So basically, it means you have attracted or selected or gotten someone to volunteer from every single dev team to be the champion of the cause of security. And they communicate on behalf of their team with you. You teach them cool stuff. They are the person on their team that makes sure that security stuff gets done. And they will deliver messages. They help make sure your messages land. They give you feedback, like, by the way, everyone hates this tool. Yeah, you should get the other one that we looked at. They are so great. Or you could do advocacy. So advocacy is where you do a whole program to try to improve the security culture where you work. Because some people work at places where everyone hates the security team. I remember, not my proudest moment, when I was a dev, I was the lead dev, and I had been for like 3 years or so at this place. And I saw the head of security coming my way, and I went like that. And then I look up, and my boss saw, and he's standing there, and the look on his face, he's like, really, Janca? Really? And I'm like, hey. He's like, stand up. Bruce, she's here. I'm like, you don't want that, right? And it got like that because all he ever did was say no. All he ever did was stop me. All he ever did was slow me down and never, ever help me, right? And then eventually things changed. which is another story for tomorrow, but advocacy can really help. Make it a standard. So up until this point, you have created guidelines of what you would like it if people could do. Like, it'd be so great if you could follow the secure coding guideline. But you can change these guidelines now, because you've had them a while, theoretically, into standards. So it's like, from now on, this is how we build software. And it's not a stick for you to whack people with. It is a goal for everyone to aspire to, and that you will help them reach, right? So I've had devs say, oh, are we gonna get fired? I'm like, no one is getting fired. Please don't leave. It's my job to work with you to get you there. And in the next year, I want us to try to get there, or as close to there as we can get, right? And when it's a standard, then every new thing will meet that standard. If it's a guideline forever, your results might vary. At SemGrep, we have, you know how like companies will have values and it'll be like integrity and honesty and truth, and then they do things like Enron. One, right? That was on their wall, was truth and integrity in their lobby. So ours is make it go fast. That is one of ours. And we obsess over making things go as fast as possible, like internally, externally, like that is our jam. And so if you can make things go fast for devs, they will love it, and they will love you. And so if you can make things self-service, so they don't even have to ask you, you automate things, you tune things so they go faster and faster and faster, they will really, really like it. And so take time to improve their daily work, and they will notice. Examine your APIs. So at this point, I feel like you should develop a slightly different approach for APIs and any other technology that you might be using. So you should have specific advice for APIs, for serverless, for WebSockets, for whatever it is they're doing. If some people are doing GraphQL, some people are doing OpenAPI, and then there's some people that have to take care of your old, sad SOAP apps, you should have guidance for them and maybe tooling for them to make sure they can do a good job, right? So we need to make sure our APIs are treated differently because they are different. There we go. I love threat modeling, so I might be slightly biased here, but this is, if you're spending a fortune, there's probably something else you could consider cutting back on so you could do threat modeling. Threat modeling, so a lot of the things that AppSec people do are focused on code, bugs, and implementation. But the other half of that is design. So if you perfectly implement an insecure design, you still have a bad day ahead of you, right? So we need to work on design and work on implementation and code. And so threat modeling is just design. That is the big part of it. And so by doing threat modeling, we can find flaws before malicious actors do and improve all the things that we build. We can also make sure they're tougher, they're rugged, they delight our customers. Threat modeling really helps with this. And like I said, there's some cool talks about it. So at this point as well, you should consider having a company-wide policy and like a plan for managing secrets. So all the secrets should be in the same type of secret management tool, but they should all have their own instance. So they all have a different vault, even though it's like, I don't know, whatever you're using, HashiCorp, CyberArk, whatever you're using, I don't care. But in a secret management tool, they all have separate vaults because if one gets compromised, the rest are safe. But the whole company should be working together on it. Everyone should know what to do if they find a secret. We should have pre-commit hooks to stop. So if someone's like trying to check in a secret in their code, there should be something that stops them before it's spilled. There's like, this is something that maybe earlier you could do, but by now you definitely need this. Okay, 8. Continuous scanning. So I asked the AI to make me a thing for continuous scanning, and this is what it gave me. And I'm like, that's creepy, but I like it. It's kind of creepy, right? So when I say continuous scanning, I don't mean what vendors probably tell you. I mean, you have taken your tools of choice and you have set them up so that they automatically scan things that are in production maybe every week, right? So you could have a secret scanner scan your code base every Sunday, and it's like zero effort for you, and then it sends you an email if it finds a secret that should not be there. There's lots and lots of automation you could do, and so basically this slide is automate all the things. So you should not be doing manual things unless it's cool manual testing that's highly interesting for you, because you have better stuff to do now. You are way, way past that. Training that doesn't suck. And so I find a lot of companies, they do one type of training for all 1,000 employees, and that doesn't always work. So if you have a big team, maybe some of them want textbooks. Maybe some of them want audiobooks. Maybe some of them need a video subscription. Maybe a whole bunch of them are going to go to live training with a trainer, but then you follow it up with monthly lunch and learns. It's really important that you consider accessibility and different learning styles. If you have a really big group of people you're trying to train, one type of training doesn't always work for everyone, and you're going to lose people along the way if you just give them one option. Even just like if you choose a book, offering an ebook, a physical book, and an audiobook for different types of people, you'll get way better results. And it sounds weird, but like the people who need something different will feel valued because you asked. And so find training that does not suck. I didn't know how to word that nicely. Okay, so if you sell a WAF, I'm sorry. So now you would want to take your WAF, throw in the garbage, and get like a RASP because they're better, or an intelligent WAF. You don't want to have the freebie anymore. If you have something that is super high priority, something that is mission critical, you might consider putting a shield in front of it. You don't have to, but if you do, you would want to switch probably from like the basic generic WAF that is quite simple to something more advanced. And I did a big shield. I was like, wow, that is really big when you look at how little the lady is. But you want to make sure that your shields are quite tough, and you also want to make sure you configure whatever shield you have so that it doesn't only protect on the way in, it protects on the way back out. So all of these types of tools can not only do like blocking of obvious attacks, they can do virtual patches for if there's a 0-day being exploited in the wild, but they can also stop exfiltration. So you can say, oh, if in the past like couple of months, the biggest response size was only 1 meg, well, then you can set a maximum response size of 2 megs. If something's coming back and it's 10 megs and it's JSON, that's like huge, right? It's like, what is going on here? You'd probably want to block that request, right? So make sure you've set it up so that you're getting the maximum value. We want to handle AppSec incidents. So at this point, you have an incident response team. Ideally, you've taught them what a software incident looks like, because it looks really different. I've worked at a lot of places where I'm not on the incident response team, but I am. And they'll come up to me and they're like, hey, Tanya, so this thing's happening. It kind of looks like this. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, can I see the logs? And we start looking, and I'm like, why is everything say 3 or 4 weeks ago? They're like, that's when we found it. I'm like, why are you telling me now? Why didn't you tell me 3 or 4 weeks ago when you found it? And then I could have helped, and it wouldn't be this bad. So they need to know what it looks like. So either you train them on what that looks like, you have someone from the AppSec team that's like on the incident response team, whatever way you want to do this, you want to make sure that they're prepared to respond to software, like custom software related incidents, not just ransomware and viruses, like malware all day long. There's more to it than that. And the last one, data-driven approach. So see how he's so happy? I was like, show me a picture of someone that is ecstatic about data. And this is what I got. And so you'd be surprised, like almost all the companies I work with, I'm like, so have you used data to analyze your program to see where you're at? And they're like, no, what do you mean? And so we'll look through past things and we'll see patterns. And I'm like, do you have any goals for your program? And they're like, what do you mean? And so we'll set goals and then we measure against them. And then we see if the things we're doing are getting us to the goal, because sometimes they don't and we need to switch things up. And that could be goals towards building a security champions program. It could be goals towards getting people to do threat modeling or getting people to fix bugs, whatever your goals are. But like, if you aren't setting things you want to achieve, you're gonna achieve something, but it might not be something you like. And so it's really important that you gather metrics on everything you do and you use it to constantly inform your work. And I'm constantly surprised by how many large companies spend millions of dollars on their AppSec program and they have no discernible metrics or goals for their they're like, well, we're gonna scan all the things. I'm like, cool, you're doing that. What's your next goal? They're like, more scanning? I'm like, no, we can do so much more, come on. Okay, so conclusion. So we learned 3 common AppSec program models. We talked about how to identify the models so you can spot if you're like, oh, maybe we're doing a bit of this one. We talked about how to take those models and mature them so they're better, so that your apps are more secure, your team, like your team that you work on, and the developers are happier, and you're usually saving money as well. And we talked about how to build like a really good AppSec program, essentially. Like wherever you're at, you can improve so things are better. It's very possible. So I'm hoping if you took one thing away, you're like, it can get better and I can help. And with that, I have some free resources for you. So the first one is my free academy with the secure coding class, the incident response class, everything. I also have stickers with that on there in case you don't get the image quickly enough. And the next thing is, oh, there we go. The next thing is books. So I wrote books, and I am biased, but me and my mom agree they're pretty good. So the yellow one isn't out till February 5th, but that's pretty close, right? And so maybe you will check these out. Cyber Mentoring Monday. So every Monday on Twitter, Blue Sky, Mastodon, and LinkedIn, I use this hashtag to help people find professional mentors. If you are looking to take your career to the next level, a professional mentor can help. But on top of that, if you've been doing your job for 2 years or more, you know enough to be a mentor. And I'd like to encourage all of you to consider taking someone under your wing and helping them. I assure you, it feels amazing when you see them just like soar. It feels really good. TLDR Sec. So my friend Clint has a newsletter. I think he has like 100,000 subscribers, and it's free. And he summarizes all the research that came out each week about security. So it's not the news. Everyone does the news. He's just like, this is the cool research. And so then he summarizes lots of it, and then you can double click on the stuff you like. And so it makes me look smart. Resources me, so I'm SheXPurple on all the things. I actually don't have Instagram, that's a lie now. The marketing team made me make one and I deleted it. I also don't have a Facebook account anymore because I got away with deleting them. But I do a lot of stuff, and if you liked this, there's literally endless more content for you that is free. And with that, I want to thank you for your time and attention today. I think do we have any time for questions, or are we done? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful, thank you. Okay. Can I give you that microphone? Because I think people, look, I got a sweater. Yeah. It's very cold. That's such an appropriate speaker's gift. That's brilliant. Do we have any questions in the audience? And if you're shy, oh, there's one over there right behind you. If you're shy, like, you can talk to me for the next 2 days. I want to hear.
Thank you. Thank you for your talk. I want to touch down on the AppSec person, the pen test versus the cuddly one. If you have budget for one, who should you hire first?
That is like the best question ever. So if you're spending tons and tons of money on pen testing, it might make sense that you hire the pen tester first. Because if that's the program you're doing and that's working well enough for you, I might hire a full-time, if you think you can keep them busy, because you don't want them to be bored, right? But if you're just doing 2 pen tests a year and you're like, everything else is a total mess, I would get, so I call them the cuddly AppSec person, because I don't know what to call that person. Because sometimes people are like, oh, they're the not technical person. I'm like, that's not true. They do like code review, they do all sorts of stuff. They're just not, I don't know, badass. Like, that, like I consider myself one of them. So, but I'm biased because I'm one of them. So I would hire me first. But I find like if you're trying to build a secure system development lifecycle, that person, if they're obsessed with that, that's the thing you can get, right, out of that person. So does that answer your question, sort of?
Yeah, and like, I'm also biased, like from a developer perspective, one thing I hate is getting many reports from security folks saying like, oh, you have here like a buffer overflow, and like, why are you not fixing it? Why are you ignoring me? It's like, just send a pull request, dude.
Yeah, right?
I'll press the button and merge.
I totally agree. I remember the first time I got a VA scan done, and I got it and I read it. I'm like, and it was like 2011, so it was a while ago. And I remember searching online for cross-site scripting, and there were 3 sites. That's it on the whole internet. And I was like, what does this crap mean? What do I do? And one of them was OWASP. So I totally feel you. And then I asked the guy, I'm like, so what is this? And he's like, you should know. And then I learned later, it's like, because he has no idea. He's like, oh, I don't friggin' know. I'll just pretend she should know, and then I'll just make her feel bad so she doesn't ask me anything ever again. Right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? There we go. I know I'm standing between you and more caffeine, so I get it.
Could you explain more in depth the difference between, or like inferiority of WAF against RASP? Because you seemed pretty adamant.
Yeah, so there's next gen WAF, which is usually pretty intelligent, but the first generation WAF is essentially a lot of regular expressions. So mod security, way better than nothing, right? And it will totally protect you against like obvious attacks, right? Which is very helpful. But the more regular expressions you have and the more complex they have, the more latency you get, right? And the more chance of you blocking a legitimate business request. I used to work with a government that was not the Canadian government, and I don't want to name them because then I'm naming them. And they had 6 full-time engineers just to control their WAF. That's very expensive. Where RASP is a technology where it's a binary, it's installed up inside of your application, and it kind of defends it from the inside out. I've just seen like much better results. They usually cost more, but like generally I see that they're better defenders, but money. I'd rather always secure coding first, and like we do tests, we have good requirements, we have multiple layers of defense, and then RASP or WAF can be one of many layers. Does that help? Awesome, thank you. Do we have any other questions before I let you all have treats? Thank you all so much, I really appreciate you.